The outcome of Canada's bid for the UN Security Council must be a wake-up call. Canada lost quickly and decisively on the first ballot. This was a report card on how the world views this Liberal government and this Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister answer for Canadians? If the world needs more Canada, then why at the UN did the world say no thanks?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would once again like to begin by thanking the incredible diplomats and everyone in Team Canada who worked so hard on what was a truly excellent campaign. Of course, we are disappointed by the outcome, but Canada will continue to be engaged. We continue to believe in multilateralism and will be a constructive partner in the United Nations, working with all those who are elected to the UN.
Point of order? Oui.
Monsieur le Président.
Oui.
Oui. La traduction française ne marche pas depuis quelques 2 à 3 minutes. Est-ce que c'est possible de rectifier le tir? À titre de député du Québec, j'aimerais qu'on me parle en français. Et comme parlementaire, je pense que c'est important.
C'est très important. Nous allons vérifier, voir ce qui se passe. C'est probablement un problème technique. Un moment. Merci de l'avoir amené à apporté à notre attention. Oui. Est-ce que ça fonctionne?
Oui, on vous entend très bien.
OK. So you're hearing me in French now? Tout est bien? Oui. Parfait. OK, parfait. Nous retournons à la question. Madame Alisev.
Canadians value our commitment to preserving freedom and democracy. We've been known for punching above our weight. But under this government, the number of Canadian peacekeepers has fallen to its lowest level in 60 years. Canada is among the lowest NATO defense contributors, and our allies have threatened to stop sharing critical intelligence since this Prime Minister has failed to ban Huawei. Did our allies vote against us for the UN Security Council seat because they have no confidence that this Prime Minister will be a trusted ally and security partner?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I reiterated yesterday, Canada has continued to lead with our values. We have been continuously a constructive partner on the world stage and will continue to do so. When it comes to peacekeeping, we were very proud to participate in the mission in Mali, as well as lead on the ELSI initiative. We have been a tremendous partner when it comes to women, peace, and security, and we will continue to lean in, to engage, and to work constructively for peace and security around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Canadians are proud to be a nation that defends human rights, and yet to win the UN security seat, this Prime Minister compromised Canadian values and failed to condemn anti-gay laws in Senegal and Uganda, or to challenge authoritarian regimes for their blatant disregard for the rule of law. Actions speak louder than words. Did the world vote against Canada because they couldn't trust this Prime Minister to stand and defend Canadian principles?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has always stood for human rights, and we have continuously stood up for LGBTQ2+ rights and women's rights on the world stage. It's a bit rich coming from the official opposition, who can't even stand for LGBTQ or women's rights here at home, let alone abroad. This government does, and we have put our money where our mouth is, and we are supporting local organizations fighting for these rights everywhere around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Alisev.
Canadians, this Conservative Party is not afraid to stand for LGBTQ rights, and we stand proudly in defense of them. Canada is a trading nation, and relationships matter. Countries trade with people they trust and respect, but this Prime Minister embarrassed Canada when he snubbed our Asia-Pacific partners by failing to show up at a critical trade negotiating meeting. He embarrassed Canada with a failed trip to India. Did the world vote against us because they didn't have the confidence that this Prime Minister would act with decorum and diplomacy that a UN Security Council seat requires?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I have to say, as someone who has been engaged in representing Canada over the past 6 months as the Minister of International Development, I have had wonderful conversations with partners on every single continent who truly value what Canada brings to the table. And I would also say that Canada is the only G7 nation to have free trade agreements with all other G7 partners. This Prime Minister has brought in CETA, CPTPP, and a renegotiated NAFTA. That is important for Canadians, and we are leading on the world stage when it...
We'll now go back to Ms. Elisab. Ms. Elisab.
Mr. Chair, the loss of the UN Security Council seat is a sad day for Canada. Canadians must be clear-eyed about how the world actually views us. In order to be a reliable and dependable partner, the world must know what we stand for. By abandoning our allies and cozying up to dictators, this Prime Minister has eroded Canada's reputation and jeopardized our future security and prosperity. If Canada is back, then can the Prime Minister explain to Canadians why we are so alone on the world stage?
Well, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I have to respectfully disagree with my colleague. Canada has played a constructive and engaged role on the world stage. It has been a privilege to engage with counterparts around the world who truly recognize Canada's leadership. We have stood for our values. We have stood for human rights. We have stood for women's rights. We have stood for a free and open and transparent trading system. We promote democracy. We promote LGBTQ rights. We fight for climate change, and we will continue to do that, Mr. Speaker, and we look forward to continuing to play a constructive and engaged.
Ms. Elisab, we have about 20 seconds left.
If Canada were playing a leadership role, the world would have wanted us in a leadership position on the UN Security Council. But instead, this Prime Minister has abandoned Canada's long-held principled foreign policy. And if Canada is standing up on the world stage, again, why did the world say no thanks?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we will take no lessons from the Conservatives. Under 10 years of their governance, they disengaged from the world stage. They stood back from Africa. They stood back when it comes to women's rights. They stood back when it came to fighting climate change. Mr. Speaker, we have done the exact...